Welcome back. You're watching The Press Club. Before the break, we were talking about suicides and increase in apparent male suicides. I want to touch on another point that the minister raised, and I think it's an issue that has come up several times: the socialization of men, and how it connects and relates to suicide.
Oh, interesting.
The fact that,
let me hear that one.
Yeah, because she was saying that, the way we raise men not to cry, not to express emotion, and like you pointed out earlier, it's a problem across the globe. I took the liberty of printing out some stuff in light of what happened during the week, assuming that it was a suicide. And as you were pointing out, it's a global problem that men are committing suicides a lot more than women, although women are attempting.
Yeah, men are more successful.
Yeah, because they use more lethal means, whereas women who use firearms would shoot their bodies, men generally go for their head.
Or slice the wrist slightly.
Yeah, and the men are hanging themselves. Firearms and hanging are the most popular methods. But it's an interesting point, and I want to raise the point, and perhaps we can discuss it too. What is the role of the media in all of this, in reshaping the way we treat our men and men treat each other? Because traditionally, and the research is there to show it, that men and women relate to each other differently. Women are more nurturing. When a woman has a problem, she'll quicker go to another woman, and spill her guts and confess, and they will console each other. Women are more nurturing. The woman will express empathy and sympathy, whereas men's relationships with each other are more about one-upmanship. How we relate to each other is who is better. That's why we are so competitive with each other in all aspects of our lives, whether it's work, relationships, sports, and that is affecting our ability when we are experiencing difficulties in any aspect of our lives, to go to another man and share, because somehow by doing that you are weak, and the other man, is in a more superior position than you, but how do we go about changing that? Well, is that even a role that the media has to
I'm not sure how much we can change it, but I know that you and I have started this morning. We talked about the need for us as media and as people, as I normally say, first of all, to get to, first of all, better understand the whole suicide scenario and put it within a global and regional context. So we know it's not just us, and it's not just us men. It's not just St. Lucian men. It's something globally. We need to do more research like you did. You took the liberty to go and download information which is available to everybody at a fingertip, about suicide. So those of us in the profession, we cannot say or write or do anything about it if we don't understand it better. So I think that the issues like this, on a weekly basis, a vibrant media association would have regular sessions where people get together and, like we do on air, engage in discussion. In fact, I have an article in today's Star giving the history of the Press Club. The Press Club, as its name suggests, started out as a venue. It was the name of a venue where the media got together on Saturdays and weekends to discuss issues that affect us. And in that way, we were able to exchange and, alter our views if we are given access to information we don't have. In those days, we didn't have the internet. We didn't even have computers. We had to read. It was about reading and following radio. Today, everything is at our fingertips. So there are different ways in which we could do it. We could educate ourselves about why suicides take place and why there's differences, but it does take place generally. And secondly, on the question of the society's relationship to men and how men grow up and the inferior, superior comparisons. We have different ways of doing it. I think the Tonight magazine has decided to, put a man in the woman's page. There are suggestions that the police, as the police pointed out, the minister is calling on members of communities and families to get more involved. The police is now calling on men who are victims of rape by women to summon the courage to come and make the reports. But they're also saying that even though it's a fact that no woman has never been convicted of rape or sexual assault that we know of, the police are also saying that they do get reports and complaints from men who are saying, listen, I'm being raped by a woman. In one particular case, which disappointed them, they said, okay, they did the research, the lady admitted and everything, but when it came to pressing the charge, the complainant said he didn't want to press charges because he simply wanted to get the woman off his back. Now, the police were saying, listen, we have to make an example. We have to let other men know that there is such a thing, that rape is not just man versus woman, but it is any type of sexual assault. So let's go. And his response was, listen, I don't want to go to court. People will come, the press will put me on paper, everybody will see my face, many will papi show me. When I go to the police station, the police women there will papi show me, they will laugh at me. So there again, we have to be aware of those cultural nuances which should inform how we go about, like saying, telling a man who's a victim of rape, without laughing at him, telling him to go and report it to the police. So these are complications that affect two things: the way in which, or the speed with which, victims or suspected cases of persons with unsound mind, etc., or people who may be committing suicide. It affects the speed with which they come forward and ask for help, but it also affects the speed with which, your question, the rest of the society, how do we react? We also have to address the society and let the society know that rape of a man by a woman is, though strange and rare, is not a laughing matter. You know, so when, if we have the story, cover it, do the story. If we know of instances, pursue them. If we're told that this thing is happening to that guy, we don't just stay in a corner and laugh and say poor job. You know, find a way of, there's always a way of getting the story, getting to the person. I think if you're going to ask the guy to give you a story to put in the papers, his initial reaction will be no. But if you insist, I want to understand this thing, you know, make me understand it, you all can build a mutual level of trust that can eventually result in him agreeing that you write the story without his name. You know, or using a false name. So it depends on our approach. We have to, it depends on what we're going after the story for. If it is to go after it for a headline, to be the first to have discovered this exciting rare story, then it's probably not going to work. We're going to have to end up writing the story without a quote.
Yeah, and that's precisely the point that I wanted to make, that we have focused a lot on our information responsibility to the abandonment of the education responsibility that we have. You know, so we report, yes, there was a suicide, but rather than working with the Ministry of Education and other Ministry of Health, sorry, and other organizations, you know, to inform and educate people and to encourage men generally to come forward, not just about rape, but suicide as well. Because the point that you're making about the rape is also applicable to the suicide situation. We will not go forward and avail ourselves of the services because we are afraid or concerned about the stigma and the discrimination that is naturally attached, living on such a small island. But the fact that you're talking about rape also brought to mind a story in Trinidad and Tobago, and we can shift our focus to the elections due on Monday. The fact that men are also subject to harassment. There's an interesting story in the media about this female reporter with the Express newspaper who resigned, claiming that she has been sexually harassed by Mr. Rowley, the opposition leader over in Trinidad and Tobago. And there's a lot of questions about the timing of her resignation and the revelation of the sexual harassment claims several weeks and months after they allegedly happened. whether it is that Kamla Persad-Bissessar is behind, whether our party is behind, the allegations and some of the other revelations that are coming so close to the elections during Trinidad. So far, I'm getting the impression it's a very close race. The analysts and the pollsters are having a difficult time in predicting, a straight winner. But it seems to be a battle between Rowley and Persad-Bissessar rather than, parties.
Between the parties, yeah. No, I have, Trinidad is the capital of Carnival, so that's, I think they also take that approach to elections and politics from the standpoint that I find it interesting, following in the past year, since the last Carnival, Mr. Rowley is chipping, he made the news for chipping. Then the next time he made the news was that closer to election, he's afraid of there's a threat on his life, which has been confirmed by the police and by the Prime Minister and by everybody. But the coverage of that alleged threat is one that is quite interesting, because within the context of the partisan approach to a general election, the questions being asked from Mr. Rowley's side is who is behind. Now, obviously, if there's a threat against Mr. Rowley's life and he has been informed officially, he will naturally have been told where that threat came from or who it is coming from. Significantly, he has not disclosed. But all of the responses from the people around him in the opposition is that, could it be Kamla? Could it be Kamla's people? Strange things are happening as it gets closer to the election. Gypsy resigned. I mean, prior to his resignation, Kamla was the best thing next to Karma. But he wanted to run again and was not selected as a candidate by the party. And the next day, he resigned, and Kamla became the worst thing. Within a few days' time, he was on the opposition's platform.
But it's interesting, you're pointing out his resignation was just one of several. There were dismissals, there were resignations. The government has been plagued by allegations of corruption.
But that's the one that was being highlighted, the fact that a significant black member of the alliance, who within the context of race politics in Trinidad was considered on the wrong side, and the reason they were going after Gypsy, the popular Calypsonian and all of that, was because he was giving his support to an Indian Prime Minister and standing by her. I heard, well, I almost said a ridiculous, but it depends on how you take it. A former president of Trinidad and Tobago, I heard on the radio yesterday, calling on Trinidad and Tobago voters to go and spoil their votes in protest. Now, in my mind, when our grandfathers fought for adult suffrage for us to be able to cast that one vote, we were always told that one vote could make that change. And I would find that for a former president of the Republic to advise people to go and spoil their vote, and explaining to people that you might not understand it, but spoiling your vote is a form of protest. That one was stretching it for me. So I think that in the context of the Trinidad election coming up and the reporter making that claim at this point in time, it is, whether you thought so or not, it is the sort of thought that would raise in the context of Trinidad. Boy, things bad for Kamla. She had to find a way to blacken Rowley's name. Now, that brings us into a major road with the traffic lights. Do we go red, green, do we go left or right or go straight ahead? Where do we fall? If we think that the reporter is part of a plot, I'm talking about as reporters, if we think she's part of a political plot and that is the result of trying to throw mud at Rowley, how does that affect our coverage of a colleague? could it be, what if it is true that she was harassed by him and chose this point in time at which to make the revelation? Does the fact that she chose when to make the revelation in any way diminish
Its veracity?
its veracity, or or the what it would mean if it was true? Yeah.
Yeah, but let's talk a little bit about that. We do for another break. They come quickly, but we'll be right back. This is the Press Club. We'll be back in, well, before you can see Press Club.